We'd been glued together since we were 6. Elliot was the kind of person who laughed too loud, talked with his hands, and somehow made silence feel comfortable. But lately he'd been acting different. Not bad different, just quiet, like his battery had run out and he'd forgotten how to recharge. I used to wake up to 50 unread texts from him every morning. Now there was just one, "Sorry, busy today." Busy doing what, I wondered. Reading another 5 volumes of Boys Love manga, probably. I found him later that day, eyes drooping and hair messy, and couldn't resist commenting. "Hey, you okay? You look like you pulled 3 all-nighters in a row." He shrugged lightly. "I'm fine. Just tired," he muttered. I scoffed. He? Tired? The guy who chugged espresso at midnight just to feel something? He laughed weakly, and there was something about the way he said, "Guess I'm changing," that made my chest tighten, like something invisible was sliding between us. The apartment itself started smelling. Nice, not like candles or detergent. Warm, like sunlight and cinnamon. Maybe I was imagining it, but every time he walked past, it hit me again. I couldn't help leaning just slightly toward him, sniffing the faint scent that seemed to cling to him. He froze, jumped, and flailed, hands coming up to cover his neck. "What?" he gasped. "Nothing. You just, changed shampoo," I said quickly. He hesitated, then muttered, "Yeah, something like that." His smile was tired, a little forced. He said he'd had a long day and was turning in, quickly retreating into his room. Normally, he'd drag me along to stay up late, ranting about his latest BL obsession, until we fell asleep side by side. But lately, he'd been disappearing earlier, leaving the room empty and colder than usual. The laugh he gave me before disappearing was nervous, like he wanted to vanish entirely. I hated that I couldn't fix it. For the first time in our lives, I couldn't read him. My best friend had become a puzzle, and I was missing half the pieces. Later that night, while tidying the living room, I discovered a stack of his novels. The covers were all pastel and dramatic. Guys in suits, guys crying in the rain. The same stories he'd giggle about, claiming, "Imagine if real life worked like that." Curiosity got the better of me, and I typed one of the titles into the search bar. The results flooded my screen, discussions about real-world awakenings, trait carriers, and a term I vaguely recognized from his books, Omegaverse. People were claiming it wasn't just fiction anymore. Pheromones, bonds, instincts, whatever it was sounded insane. I scrolled until my eyes burned, every comment feeling like someone was describing Elliot without even knowing him. Sensitivity to small things, headaches, emotional overload. My stomach dropped. I looked back at the stack of novels and picked up the one with Omegaverse on the cover. I'd avoided these kinds of books before because Elliot had gone on endlessly about their over-the-top, dramatic plots. Now, staring at the highlighted passages, I couldn't look away. "Nah," I muttered to myself. "No way, that's just internet junk." But the thought refused to leave me. The next morning, he made pancakes. He never made pancakes. He looked at me, eyes half-lidded, like he wanted to say something but couldn't. I wanted to shake him and hug him at the same time. "Whatever's going on," I whispered, "you don't have to deal with it alone." He smiled, that delicate smile that said thank you, but please don't ask again, and then turned away. Maybe he really was changing. Maybe we both were. And maybe, somehow, I was starting to notice things about him I wasn't supposed to. The way he bit his lip when he was thinking. The way he looked too small in my hoodie. The way my chest jumped whenever he said my name. I told myself to stop thinking about Elliot. 3 days later, I was still thinking about him. Somehow, no matter how many times I tried to convince myself to focus on classwork, video games, or literally anything else, my thoughts kept circling back to him. I noticed him in the hallway, laughing with a group of classmates I barely recognized. He seemed lighter somehow, happier. Not that he ever wasn't happy, but this was different. His movements, the way his smile reached his eyes, it was like he belonged to a world I couldn't enter. My chest tightened. I couldn't tell if it was jealousy or fear or both. Later that evening, I found him in the library, curled into one of his pastel-covered novels. He didn't notice me, so I just watched like I had done countless times before. His eyes darted quickly across the page, lips mouthing the words silently. When he let out a soft sigh, I realized it wasn't exhaustion. It was something heavier, something hidden, and I hated that I couldn't fix it. I cleared my throat, and he jumped, startled. He blinked at me, hair falling into his eyes, then pushed it back with one hand. "Hey!" I said, trying to sound casual, though my stomach nodded. He gave a small, sheepish smile. "Oh, hey!" he replied quietly. We fell into the usual banter, but it felt different this time. Every word felt loaded. Every laugh was fragile. Even when he joked about some ridiculous scene in his book, I could tell he was holding back something beneath the surface. That night, back in our shared apartment, I couldn't focus. I sat at my desk, pulling one of his novels off the shelf almost by accident. It was the same type of novel I looked up last time. The word Omegaverse stared up at me from the cover, familiar from our conversations but now oddly real. I continued to do my research and looked more into the sense and smell related in the Omegaverse. I not only found out about pheromones, heats, and ruts, but also a whole new system of life with supplements and surgeries involved. This wasn't your average fictional BL trope, but literal science fiction. What shocked me the most wasn't the wolf-like characteristics of nodding and claiming mates. It was the fact that male omegas can be bred and impregnated by alphas. I was stunned and left speechless. Male pregnancy? Preg? What? Suddenly, my mind imagined Elliot round with my kid, caressing his belly, smiling at me, and calling me dear. My face burned red, and I quickly snapped out of it. Ran to the bathroom and splashed water on my face to cool my head. I felt my hands tighten around the edge of the sink. Every post sounded like it was describing Elliot without naming him. My stomach lurched. The boy who had been my entire childhood suddenly felt fragile in a way I had never noticed. I went to sleep that night confused and heated, praying that I wouldn't get a wet dream about my childhood friend, despite how tempting he is. I couldn't really sleep and kept thinking that if Elliot were to be claimed and impregnated, I would prefer it to be done by me. No, I will make sure he is mine. Lately, everything about Julian had started affecting me in ways I couldn't explain. It wasn't just that he was there. It was the way he moved, the warmth that seemed to cling to him, the subtle, comforting scent that lingered in the apartment even after he left a room. I noticed it first, brushing past him in the kitchen. A faint, sweet smell, like sunlight mixed with something familiar. It made my head spin, made my chest feel tight. Sometimes I got sudden headaches or cramps for no reason at all. I couldn't understand why, but each time it happened, Julian's absence or presence was always in the back of my mind. It was like my body was responding to something it didn't know how to explain. I had always read BL stories, and I knew the tropes too well. I knew about the power dynamics, the tension, the way the characters would react to each other's presence. But now, living with Julian, it felt like some of those storylines were bleeding into my real life, and I didn't know if I could handle it. That night, I dreamt of Julian, his blonde hair falling down his face as he looked down on me. My eyes trailed down to his bare chest and shiny abs. Wait, shiny abs? Why is he panting so hard and sweating?
Elliot, I'm coming.
I woke up in a flush and was panting hard. I closed my eyes shut and groaned into his pillow. Wah! What was that dream? Why was Julian in my dream and on top of me naked? Elliot groaned. I felt wet down there and checked his pants. It had a wet patch on it. He blushed furiously. I quickly ran into the bathroom to clean up. As I was washing his underwear, he noticed that his backside was still wet. I checked and I was indeed leaking slick. Oh God. I really am an Omega. Damn it, why me? The least this universe could do was make me a beta or something. I don't want to be like those poor submissive Omegas in the toxic Omegaverse stories I read. Wait, I'm an Omega? I'm leaking slick. Does that mean? I touched my flat stomach and realized that I could get pregnant. Me? Preg? Suddenly, my mind thought of my belly being round and big with Julian hugging me from behind and scenting me. Knock knock. Elliot? Are you in there? You okay? When Julian had knocked on my door, asking to use the bathroom. My heart had leapt into my throat, and I had panicked. My room, my apartment, it smelled like him. Every lingering scent from him somehow made my reactions worse, made me more flustered than I wanted to admit. And yet, when he didn't seem to notice, when he just went about his business, I realized something terrifying. Julian was naturally commanding, dominant in ways I hadn't seen before. Alpha, if the stories were anything to go by. And I was not panicked. I didn't want him to notice, didn't want him to think I was acting strange or weird. Yeah, I'm fine, had a stomachache. I tried to answer as calmly as I could. Julian had always been Julian, oblivious, warm, kind. He had no idea how much of himself he left behind just by existing in our shared space. And yet, my body, my emotions, my senses, they betrayed me at every turn. From that moment, I made a decision. I had to distance myself. I had to act normal, keep my distance, because if I didn't, I could feel myself being pulled toward him in ways I didn't understand, and I was convinced it would only complicate everything. He would never see me the same way again, and I wasn't ready to risk our friendship. It didn't help that I knew his family had plans for him. Plans that didn't include me. They wanted to set him up with someone else, a connection that would solidify their business ties. I'd even been warned once, subtly, to know my place. And yet, here I was living with him, sharing space, sharing routines. The closer I got, the more complicated everything became. So I kept my distance.
He smiled, he laughed, he acted casual.
But inside, I was panicking, feeling emotions I couldn't name, pulled toward him with every small movement, every glance, every subtle, unintentional brush against me. Julian didn't know. He didn't have to, but I could feel the tension building, the invisible pull, and I knew sooner or later something had to give. Elliot had been avoiding me. At first, it was subtle, leaving the apartment earlier than usual, coming back later than I expected. But over the past week, it had turned into a pattern. He'd duck out before I even woke up, retreat to some corner of the campus I couldn't find, and disappear into the night long after I had gone to bed. I tried to tell myself it didn't bother me. I tried to convince myself that maybe he just needed space, or that I was overthinking. But every time I saw his empty chair at the kitchen table or passed by his neatly made bed untouched, something in me twisted. Annoyance, frustration, worry. They all swirled together until my chest felt tight and every thought seemed to orbit around him. I wanted to confront him, to demand an explanation, but I knew that if I did, he'd pull even further away. He'd avoid me like a fragile bird, and I wasn't ready to let that happen. Not now. Not ever. That's when an idea formed in my head. Desperate, ridiculous, slightly evil, but effective. I'd make him notice me, force him to see me, to come running, to pay attention. And the only way I could guarantee that was to fake an injury. The plan was simple in theory, chaotic in execution. I stood in the kitchen with a pot of boiling water, my dominant left hand hovering over it. My stomach churned as the heat radiated off the stove, but I told myself it was worth it. One small misstep, and it could go wrong, but the thought of Elliot rushing to my side made me steady my grip. I poured the water over my hand, suppressing the sharp cry that escaped my lips, and stared at the reddened skin. The pain was immediate, fierce, but controlled. Enough to warrant a hospital visit. Enough to guarantee Elliot would hear about it. The ambulance ride was excruciating, not from the pain, but from the anticipation. Would he come? Would he freak out? Would he finally notice? And notice he did. Elliot was waiting for his order of coffee to arrive, when suddenly an unknown number called his phone. Confused, he picked it up. "Hello, is this Elliot?" the caller asked. "Yes," Elliot responded. "You were saved as Mr. Julian's emergency contact information, and I'm calling to inform you that he is being rushed to the hospital right now." Elliot's eyes shot wide open. His hand became trembling. Julian? What happened to him? Which hospital is he going to? Elliot panicked and shouted into the call. "Please calm down, sir. He's being transferred to St. Hart's Hospital." Elliot wasted no time and started running to hail a taxi to the hospital. He immediately dialed Julian's number. His heart was pounding out of his chest. He's already tearing up and regretted avoiding Julian over the last few weeks. Please don't let anything happen to him, he prayed. It wasn't long before my phone buzzed. My eyes, half-lidded from pain, read his name flashing on the screen. Elliot. My emergency contact. My chest tightened, and a slow, almost imperceptible smirk spread across my face. I tried to suppress it, pressing my lips together as the paramedics loaded me onto a stretcher. When he arrived at the hospital, my heart thumped in a way that was impossible to ignore. He practically barreled through the doors, panic written across his features. His gaze swept over me and my heavily bandaged hand, and for the first time in days, nothing else, no hesitation, no caution, no careful distance, mattered. His arms reached for me instinctively, eyes wide and frantic, and I watched him forget every ounce of restraint. Julian. Oh my God. What happened? His voice shook as he leaned over me, inspecting the bandages, pressing lightly to check if I was okay. The omega scent that had been subtly building around him over the last week seemed to vanish from my awareness, replaced by something else. Concern, urgency, need. He didn't care about anything else. I managed to smile, small and wicked, the kind of smile I'd been holding back all week. Don't worry, I croaked, letting the pain in my hand exaggerate my voice just enough to sound believable. It's fine. I'm okay. He didn't look convinced. He never would. But that was fine, because he was here rushing to my side, staying close. And for now, that was all I wanted. By the time we left the hospital, Elliot's grip hadn't loosened. I let him walk me back home, careful to maintain just enough weakness to keep him hovering right where I wanted him. I could feel the tension in him, the worry, the fear, the relief, all mixing together, and it made my chest tighten in a deliciously twisted way. When we got back, Elliot fussed over me, checking that I had ice packs, making sure I could move my fingers, muttering softly under his breath. I caught his gaze once, and my smile threatened to break into something uncontainable, but I held it back. The look in his eyes, the frantic attentiveness. It was mine. Mine to command, mine to keep. And for the first time in a week, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I was winning. The apartment felt quieter than usual that evening. Elliot had retreated into his usual routine, quietly tiptoeing around me as if my presence alone made him uncomfortable. I couldn't let it go unaddressed, not directly, at least. So, I said, leaning against the doorway with my bandaged hand raised casually. Since you've seemed a little uneasy around me this past week, I guess I should stop making you worry for now. My hand will be fine, I said with a sad, weary smile. I flexed my fingers just slightly, wincing in exaggerated pain. But I really need to wash up since we get back from the hospital. Make sure it doesn't get infected. Elliot's head snapped toward me at the word infected, and I caught the pale flash across his face. His voice came out faster than he intended. Maybe we could shower together? He froze, realizing what he'd just said, and quickly added, I just meant I'd help you bathe. Nothing weird. I chuckled, the low, teasing kind of chuckle that made him squirm in place. If you want to, then sure. He groaned quietly, burying his face in his hands before peeking back at me, cheeks flaming pink. As he approached to help me remove the bandages, he helped me lift my shirt and remove it. His hands trembled slightly, brushing against my bare abs and muscles. I felt the subtle shift in his energy, the faint tension in his movements, and a wicked thrill ran through me. I made sure to flesh out my muscles and rolled my shoulders. The veins bulge out on my biceps. I could see Elliot's Adam's apple bob up and down as he ogles me. Next, the jeans. I tried to remove them myself, but faked a wince as I tried to use my injured hand. Elliot hesitated at first, but he dropped down lower to help me out of my jeans. His breath was so close to my crotch for approximately 5 seconds, and I held my breath, concentrating not to get hard and smack his puffy cheeks with Julian Jr. He was flustered, embarrassed, trying to focus on the task in front of him, but I could see it in the way his eyes lingered, in the slight hitch of his breath when his fingers grazed my skin. He was getting used to seeing me like this, and the small flush creeping across his neck told me exactly how much he noticed. I stepped into the bath first, letting the warm water ripple around me. "Careful not to get yourself soaked," I teased lightly, pretending to be concerned. He stiffened, suddenly aware that his own excitement had made him wet. He flushed even redder and squirmed, wiggling his butt on the floor. I raised an eyebrow, a teasing smirk tugging at my lips. "Well, looks like someone might need to join me in here after all," I said, voice low and playful. "No, no way, Julian," he sputtered, flustered beyond measure, retreating just slightly from the bath edge. I laughed, the sound echoing around the small bathroom, full of amusement and something deeper, something almost possessive. We bickered, laughing like we used to, our familiar rhythm returning. He teased me about my overdramatic fake injuries. I teased him back for almost panicking, and somewhere in between, the playful tension between us stretched taut, almost too delicate to touch but impossible to ignore. As I watched him fumble and frown at the idea of getting into the bath with me, my mind wandered. How can I get him to stay tonight? I thought. My injuries gave me the perfect excuse. He was already hovering close enough to notice everything, already showing that he cared. Surely I could convince him that it was safer, more comfortable for him to sleep in the same room, the same bed even. A few more strategically placed wincing gestures, a few more playful jabs about infection risk, and I knew I could pull him in. I smiled to myself, letting the thought linger. The old closeness, the one we'd shared since we were kids, was slipping back into place, but this time it was charged with something more, something stronger. And just like that, I began plotting the next step. Making sure he didn't leave tonight, making sure he stayed close, and maybe, just maybe, letting him realize that he belonged here with me. I had been thinking about it all evening, how to make Elliot stay in the same bed with me without pushing him away. I yawned loudly right in front of him to show him how exhausted I was. He was exhausted from the long day. I don't feel right leaving him alone, but sleeping on the same bed as him will reveal that I'm an omega. What's worse is if I leaked slick from having a wet dream about him again. Elliot's mind was spiraling, and to stop him from overthinking I made a sad noise. I move around so much when I sleep, and with my hand like this, I'd probably wake up in more pain than I can handle. I said casually with a hint of indignation. "Could you stay and sleep with me like how we used to? Please, Ellie?" I pleaded with my puppy dog eyes and his nickname that only I know. He hesitated, brow furrowing as if weighing whether I was serious or not. I kept my tone light, teasing, almost like it was just concern for my comfort, not my real plan. "It's fine. I mean, it's just one night. You can stay on this side. I'll make sure I don't roll over," I added quickly, pretending to wince in exaggerated pain. He looked at me, uncertain, but exhaustion had softened his resistance. "Okay, I guess," he murmured. The way his voice softened, almost reluctantly agreeing, sent a thrill through me. I pretended to fall asleep almost immediately, letting my breathing deepen, slow and even. He leaned in beside me, clearly thinking I was completely out. Good, I thought. Perfect. The moment he settled next to me, I peeked at his sleeping face, soft, relaxed, a little flushed from the day's heat and effort. My chest tightened. God, he looked so small, so vulnerable. Slowly, carefully, I shifted closer, spooning him from behind. He was a deep sleeper. He didn't stir at all. My arm moved to rest gently over his waist, and I couldn't resist leaning down to sniff at the back of his neck. The scent hit me immediately, sunshine and cinnamon, a warmth I couldn't ignore. Mixed with the faint residue of our shared shower gel, it was unmistakably him. My lips parted slightly as I groaned softly, the sound muffled against his hair. He smells like home. Like him. Like everything I've been craving, I thought, heart hammering. I let myself linger there, holding him, breathing him in, memorizing the quiet rhythm of his body. Every rise and fall of his chest, every small shift in sleep, every little sigh he made. all of it anchored me to him, reminded me that he was here, that he was mine in this moment at least. And as I held him closer, pretending to sleep, I let my mind drift, planning the next steps. How to keep him near, how to get him to truly stay, and how to make sure he realized, without a single word, that he belonged here with me. Elliot had been taking care of me every day, feeding me, helping me wash up, even staying in my room at night to make sure I was okay. My heart felt like it was about to burst every time he fussed over me, lingered just a little too long, or laughed softly at my attempts to hide my helplessness. We'd fallen back into our old routine, the one we'd shared since we were kids. But somehow it felt different now. Everything was more intense, more intimate. Every small touch, every brush of his fingers, made my chest tighten, made me ache in ways I wasn't ready to admit. One evening, I suggested we watch a movie together, trying to act casual. Elliot agreed, settling beside me on the couch. The room was dim, the glow of the TV flickering across his face, and I felt a flutter of something dangerous in my chest. When the movie started, I leaned my head into his lap, pretending to doze off. Elliot jumped slightly at first, and I couldn't help but nuzzle closer, letting myself feel the warmth and the faint scent of him. Sunshine and cinnamon, soft and familiar. His scent was even stronger here. I really want to nuzzle in even deeper and bury my face in his crotch. I know that sounds unhinged, but my mind was becoming really hazy from the overwhelming sweet scent. I drooled a little, embarrassed, but too comfortable to care. Before sleep could fully claim me, I felt his hand brush through my hair, slow and careful. My chest swelled, my thoughts scattered. I wished this could last forever, the quiet, the warmth, the way he stayed so close without question. I didn't want to move, didn't want to wake him, didn't want this moment to end. For once, I felt safe. For once, the world shrank down to just the two of us, and all I could think was how much I didn't want him to go anywhere. And for that night, I let myself drift, pressed against him, feeling him, smelling him, treasuring every second. The morning after the movie night, the apartment felt unusually quiet. The memory of Elliot leaning against me, the warmth of his body, the soft scent that had clung to him. It lingered in my mind, making it hard to focus on anything else. On my way to the university cafe, I saw Elliot from the outside. I was just about to call out to him, wanting to hear his voice again, when I noticed him across the room, talking and laughing with someone else. A big, muscular guy, clearly a gym type. My stomach sank, and a sharp twist of possessiveness gripped me. Elliot's laugh, light, carefree, unguarded, was the same laugh he gave me when we were kids, the one I'd loved hearing for years. But now it felt different. It belonged to someone else, even if only for a moment. My hands clenched slightly. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, just a friend, a casual conversation. But my mind wouldn't listen. The way he leaned in, gesturing animatedly, the way that other guy's hand brushed Elliot's shoulder. It was enough to set every protective instinct I had on fire. I swallowed, forcing a laugh I didn't feel, trying to mask the storm inside. I reminded myself that Elliot didn't know. He didn't see me the way I saw him, and maybe he never would. But the thought of someone else, getting that close, getting his laughter, his attention, couldn't stand it. I took a deep breath and reminded myself to play it cool, to bide my time, to wait. But deep down, I knew one thing. No one was going to have him but me. Not now. Not ever. And as I watched him from the doorway, smiling at the other guy, I felt my resolve harden. Soon, I'd make sure Elliot knew exactly who he belonged to. I hadn't seen Benjamin in years, not since high school. But when I heard he had also awakened as an Omega, I knew I needed to talk to him. I needed someone who understood. We met at the university cafe, the kind where the sunlight fell softly through the windows. Benjamin had changed, taller, broader, more confident. But there was a softness in his eyes, a quiet patience that reminded me why we'd been friends in the first place. "So, you're awake too?" I asked, nervously twisting my straw. My fingers felt clammy, my chest tight. I hated how awkward I felt around him, even though we'd been friends for years. Benjamin chuckled softly. "Yeah, it was rough at first. I didn't really accept it. Big-built, strong, alpha-looking. Not exactly what I imagined an Omega to be. I kept fighting it, denying it, even got angry at myself. He shrugged, looking down at his hands. But then I met my fated Alpha. Slowly, with his help, I started to accept it, started to understand what it meant, and more importantly, how to live with it without hating myself. I nodded, taking in every word. My chest twisted. I couldn't stop thinking about Julian, the warmth, the attention, the subtle possessiveness. What if Julian's presence made things worse when my heat arrived? I felt a flutter of panic in my stomach. So, what should I do if, my heat comes? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I stared at the table, afraid to meet Benjamin's gaze. Benjamin leaned back, thoughtful. Honestly, you need to meet alphas. Not random ones, but ones you can trust. Someone you can bond with, someone who can help you get through it safely. You don't have to be intimate if you're not ready. But having that support makes it possible to live normally. Keep your routines. Keep your friendships. Especially if there's someone like Julian in your life. You don't want to lose him just because you're scared or unprepared. I swallowed, my mind spinning. I wanted to stay as close to Julian as possible. I didn't want anyone else to replace him. But Benjamin's advice made sense. Preparing for the heat, learning to manage it. It could mean keeping my life, keeping Julian intact. I guess I can try, I muttered. Benjamin's eyes softened, and he smiled. Good, he said. I actually know an alpha who's trustworthy. Calm, patient, experienced. I can set you up. Just a blind date. No pressure. Think of it as practice, not a replacement for anyone. I hesitated, heart hammering. Blind date? With an alpha? My mind flashed to Julian again, warm, smiling, teasing me. I shivered, but then nodded. Okay, I'll do it. Just to see. To learn. Benjamin grinned, clapping me lightly on the shoulder. That's the spirit. You're going to be okay, Elliot. Just take it one step at a time. As we finished our drinks, I couldn't shake the nervous thrill coursing through me. Meeting another alpha, preparing for the unknown. It was terrifying, yes, but it was also a step toward keeping my life, my independence, and, most importantly, keeping Julian close. I glanced out the window, thinking about the apartment, about Julian, about everything waiting for me there. I have to do this, even if it scares me, even if I hate it, even if I want him to notice me first. I couldn't get the image out of my head. Elliot laughing with that gym bro, leaning in, animated and carefree. The way my chest tightened was ridiculous, and yet I couldn't help it. I wanted him back, wanted him close, wanted him to notice me, to feel like I was the only one who mattered. So I decided to act. Slowly, subtly. Nothing obvious, nothing that would push him away. Just little reminders of me, of us, of the bond we'd had since we were 6. I started by accidentally leaving things where he would notice them. His favorite hoodie draped over the chair near mine. A half-finished snack I knew he liked. My hand wrapped loosely around a mug of tea I knew he always reached for. Tiny claims, small marks, but enough to make him pause, to make him remember. At dinner, I found excuses to sit closer than usual. I let my knee brush his under the table, let my fingers linger over the edge of the chair near him. Every small contact was a little spark, a quiet reminder. I was here. I was his. When he glanced at me, I caught the fleeting tension in his eyes, the almost imperceptible flush on his cheeks. That little flicker of awareness made my chest tighten, made my lips curve into a small, victorious smile. Later, as we cleaned up the kitchen, I let my shoulder brush his side a little more firmly than necessary. I teased him lightly about being clumsy, about leaving crumbs on the counter, about somehow always making me spill my tea. He laughed, soft and slightly flustered, and I felt a warmth spreading through me. Every laugh, every glance, every little movement reminded me why I couldn't let him slip away. Elliot was mine in the quiet, subtle ways that mattered. And if I had to push, if I had to tease, if I had to make him notice in ways he couldn't ignore, I would. because one day soon he'd realize. And when that day came, there would be no mistakes, no distractions, just him, just me, and no one else would ever get in the way. Julian has been different lately, touchier, closer. His hand lingers a second too long on my shoulder. His gaze flickers down when he thinks I'm not looking. We've always been close, best friend close. But this is something else. Something that makes my chest twist and my breath catch. Every time he brushes against me, it feels like my whole body lights up. I keep telling myself it's nothing, that I'm imagining it. But the air between us hums with something I don't understand. It's ridiculous. This is exactly how those stories start. The ones I used to laugh about. The ones where friendship blurs into something dangerous and nobody knows where the line is until it's too late. One drunken session will turn into a runaway pregnant Omega. I can't let that happen. Not to us. Julian means too much. If I fall apart, I'll take him down with me. My phone vibrates in my pocket. Benjamin's last message still sits there. The invitation to meet that calm, reliable alpha he mentioned. My thumb hovers over the keyboard before I type the words. Can we move it to tomorrow? It feels like a betrayal, but it's also the only way I know to protect what we still have. If I can learn to manage whatever's happening to me, maybe things will go back to normal. Maybe Julian will stop looking at me like I'm something he could break or, worse, something he could want. I press send. The screen glows in the dark apartment. I stare at the message until it disappears, swallowed by the chat window. For our sake, I whisper to no one. This is the only way. I didn't notice at first. Or maybe I did, but I didn't want to. Elliot had been acting a little strange lately, but I kept telling myself it was nothing. Busy with classes, stressed from work, maybe catching up on his hobbies. But the second I walked past his room and saw him standing in front of the mirror, meticulously adjusting his hair, tugging at the edges of his favorite hoodie, I stopped dead in my tracks. He looked different. Not in the way he usually did when he was wearing his comfy, oversized clothes, hair messy from a late night of reading BL, or headphones slung around his neck. No, this was deliberate, careful, intentional. His black hair fell perfectly into place, eyes sparkling just enough to catch the light from the window. And his outfit, Julian, you've got to be kidding me, his best-fitted jacket, crisp shirt tucked neatly, and jeans that somehow accentuated everything I'd always admired quietly. I blinked, trying to process. My chest thumped in a way that was entirely unfair. Every instinct in me, everything I'd tried to ignore, suddenly screamed. I was smitten, completely, utterly smitten, and maybe a little furious at myself for letting it happen. Hey, I called out, trying to sound casual, though my throat had gone dry. Where are you going? Elliot jumped slightly, as if he'd been caught doing something wrong. He twisted in place, blinking at me with wide, innocent eyes. Nothing. Just, errands. Errands. My tone lifted, skeptical. At this hour? And dressed like that. I gestured vaguely at his outfit, trying not to show my fascination as my mind immediately catalogued how perfect he looked. He fidgeted, tugging at his sleeve, eyes darting down at the floor. I just thought I'd, freshen up for something. Something, I repeated slowly, my suspicion flaring. Something, huh? My voice carried an edge I didn't intend, but the curiosity, and honestly jealousy, made it impossible to sound calm. He hesitated, mouth opening as if to speak, then shut it again, his fingers fiddling nervously with the hem of his shirt. I stepped closer, trying to mask the ridiculous urge to lean in and fix his hair myself. Elliot, you're lying. You never do this for nothing. So tell me, where are you going? A tense beat passed. His lips pressed into a thin line. Finally, he muttered, it's just a group thing. Yeah, group project. For class. Right? I said, raising an eyebrow. My brain instantly flagged every single inconsistency. The way his shoes were perfectly polished, the faint scent of cologne I didn't recognize, the way his hoodie looked intentionally tucked to highlight his slim waist. Group project. Sure. I didn't believe a word. I decided then and there. I needed to know. Couldn't let him go without following. And before he could leave, I slipped on my jacket and practically jogged behind him, keeping a careful distance. The city lights blurred past as I shadowed him. Adrenaline and curiosity mixing into something I couldn't name. Elliot stopped in front of a cafe I knew from the neighborhood. A fancy place I would never have associated with him. He checked his watch nervously, then peered down the street. My pulse spiked. He wasn't alone for long. Just as he straightened and adjusted his jacket, a tall, imposing man walked through the door. Black suit, perfect posture, hair slicked back, and an aura of authority that made me freeze mid-step. Mid-thought, my brain refused to function for a moment. Elliot's face lit up as the man approached, offering a polite smile that made my stomach twist painfully. The man returned the smile, calm and smooth, sliding into the seat opposite Elliot. And just like that, the world seemed to tilt sideways. I wanted to run. I wanted to stomp my feet and demand explanations. But I couldn't. I was frozen, staring through the cafe window as Elliot's hands wrapped slightly around his cup, his nervous energy barely calm. Who the hell is that? I muttered under my breath, my words trembling. Why is Elliot sitting with him? My thoughts started spinning faster than I could follow. This isn't a friend. This isn't a casual acquaintance. He's dressed like he's meant to be important. Older, confident, dangerous. Elliot's on a date? I felt a wave of possessiveness hit me all at once. Hot, blinding, and undeniable. My hands curled into fists at my sides. No, I can't let this happen. Not with him. Not with anyone else. Not him. I whispered to myself, almost angrily, Elliot, my Elliot. What the hell are you doing? Who is he? Why didn't you tell me? You're supposed to. I stopped abruptly, chest tightening. My vision blurred slightly, my brain scrambling to process the sense of betrayal, fear, and jealousy all at once. I crouched behind a nearby lamppost, straining to see their conversation. Elliot laughed softly, his hand brushing lightly against the edge of the table. The man's deep voice replied calmly, confidently, but I couldn't make out the words. It didn't matter. My mind filled in every imagined phrase with danger and urgency. He's on a date with some older guy, my Elliot, the one I've been protecting, caring for, longing for. He's with someone else. My heart pounded in my chest, threatening to burst. Every instinct in me screamed, I can't let this happen. Not now. Not ever. Not with him. I clenched my jaw, teeth gritting as I fought to stay out of sight. Every part of me wanted to storm in, to pull him out of that chair, to make sure he knew that he belonged to me. And yet, couldn't. I had to understand. I had to know why. So I stayed hidden in the shadows, watching, my pulse hammering, my thoughts a tangle of suspicion, panic, and the undeniable ache of longing. Who was this man? Why was Elliot here? And most importantly, why didn't he tell me? I had a feeling that whatever the answer was, it was going to change everything. I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, tugging at the edges of my jacket for the 100th time. My stomach twisted nervously. Calm down. It's just a date. Just a practice, Benjamin said. Nothing else. But it didn't feel like nothing else. My fingers lingered on the button of my shirt, smoothing the creases as though perfection in my outfit could somehow mask the chaos in my chest. Every small detail mattered tonight. How my hair fell, the way my shoes shined, even the faint dab of scent I'd added to the nape of my neck. I wanted to be presentable, composed. But most of all, I wanted to survive this without thinking about Julian. I tried to ignore the small flutter in my chest every time I imagined him noticing me, standing in the doorway like he always did. Julian's smirk, the way his amber eyes seemed to pierce right through me. It was impossible not to think about. And yet, I knew this was necessary. Benjamin had been clear. If I wanted to keep our bond intact, if I wanted to handle the upcoming changes with control, I needed guidance from someone else. An alpha. Someone reliable. I exhaled and grabbed my bag. Okay. I whispered to myself, just a date, just a friendly mentorship. You can do this. The cafe was upscale, quiet, and smelled faintly of roasted coffee and polished wood. I spotted the reserved table immediately. A single chair was pulled out as though waiting for me, and I felt my pulse spike. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that this was purely precautionary. A measure to survive, not anything more. Anthony approached shortly after, stepping out of the black car parked outside the cafe. He was older, tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that made him look like he'd just walked out of a magazine shoot. His presence radiated confidence, calm authority, and just enough warmth to make a person simultaneously nervous and reassured. "Elliot," he said smoothly, voice deep but controlled, as he offered his hand. "It's good to finally meet you. Benjamin has told me a lot." I hesitated for a fraction of a second before shaking his hand, noting the firm grip, the precise confidence. "Likewise," I muttered, forcing my voice steady. "Keep it casual. Just casual. Nothing else." Anthony smiled, taking his seat across from me. "You're well prepared," he said casually, nodding toward my outfit. "Dressed nicely. Hair perfect. You don't usually put this much effort into yourself." I swallowed, feeling heat rush to my cheeks. Just thought. Might as well, I guess," I said awkwardly. "You know, be appropriate?" He chuckled softly, a sound that made my chest tighten. "Appropriate. I like that. Relax, Elliot. This isn't a test. At least, not the kind you're imagining." I glanced down at my hands, fidgeting with my fingers. "Test. That word. Test. Benjamin said you'd help me bond with an alpha." My stomach flipped. "So, this is about the Omega thing?" I asked hesitantly. Anthony's eyes met mine, sharp but kind. "Yes, part of it. I want you to learn how to manage it, how to be comfortable with yourself, and how to handle situations where attention from alphas could become complicated. You're connected to someone, aren't you?" My breath hitched. "Julian." I clenched my hands in my lap. Yes. He's important," I admitted softly, words trembling. "I don't want to lose that. I need to learn just how to control things." Anthony nodded knowingly. "Good. That's exactly why you're here. Don't worry. I'm not here to replace anyone. But I do need to push you a little. Make sure you're ready if your heat comes. And if anyone ever challenges your bond, you'll know how to protect it." I exhaled shakily. "Protect it. Keep it safe. Keep Julian safe. That's all that matters." Anthony leaned back slightly, calm and patient. "We'll start small. A meeting. Conversation. You'll get a feel for what being an awakened Omega is like. That's all. You're in control, Elliot. Remember that." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. But inside, my heart was hammering. My thoughts kept drifting to Julian. How he'd react, how he'd notice me dressed like this, even for a blind date. My chest tightened at the thought of him seeing me looking, well, like I had never looked for anyone else. I forced my gaze back to Anthony. "Okay. I'll try," I said softly. "I'll go along with it." Anthony smiled again, warm but subtly teasing. "Good. That's all I ask. Just relax. Let's see how you handle it, and then we can talk after. Learn a little. Prepare you for whatever comes next." I took a deep breath and nodded again, trying to steady the nerves that twisted in my stomach. "Right. Prepare. Got it." As we ordered coffee, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. I looked like an Omega on a date, like someone intentionally presentable, controlled, careful. But I couldn't shake the feeling of unease, like I was standing on a precipice and the fall could go in any direction. Outside, across the street, I saw a flicker of movement. A familiar silhouette paused, just enough for me to recognize him. Julian. My heart stuttered painfully. He's following me? Watching. I froze, staring down at my hands. I didn't want him to see me here. Not like this. Not a vulnerable. I wanted him to trust me, to know I wasn't abandoning him, But I also needed to survive tonight without chaos erupting. Julian, of course, had noticed my hesitation. I could almost see him, tense in the shadows, amber eyes sharp and questioning. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table. Don't panic. Keep calm. You can handle this. You have to. Anthony noticed the flicker of my unease. He leaned slightly forward, quiet but steady. Relax, Elliot. No one's here to challenge your heart. Not tonight. Trust yourself. I nodded again, trying to believe him, even as my thoughts scrambled between Julian's probable anger and the strange, grown-up calm of Anthony sitting across from me. The evening stretched forward, slow and deliberate, each moment a balance between tension, learning, and the quiet, simmering fear that Julian might see me and misunderstand everything. And as I sipped my coffee, trying to act composed, I couldn't help but think, this is just the beginning, just one step. I hope Julian understands why I'm doing this. I couldn't believe my eyes. There he was, Elliot, dressed like some polished version of himself, hair slightly styled, jacket fitted perfectly, standing outside that upscale cafe. My heart twisted in a mix of fascination, jealousy, and that gnawing possessive ache that had been quietly building inside me since he started acting differently. I ducked behind a parked car, letting my gaze linger. What the hell is he doing? Why is he dressed like that? Who is he meeting? My fists clenched. Every instinct screamed at me to rush over, confront him, demand answers. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. Not here. Not in public. So I followed. Quiet, careful like a shadow. The streets were cool. The evening settling in with golden streetlights glinting off the pavement. My mind couldn't stop racing. This is a blind date. That's what Benjamin said. Just a blind date to teach him, right? But what if it isn't? What if someone else touches him? The cafe melted behind us as Elliot walked toward a fancy building across town. His steps were confident, but there was an odd tension in the way he carried himself. My nostrils flared. The faint scent I'd been noticing for weeks, sunshine, cinnamon, that lingering trace of our shared shower gel, was stronger here. Not just him, but other scents mingled in the air. Omegas, alphas, something primal and intoxicating. My chest tightened. Oh no, this is one of those awakened gatherings. Isn't it? I ducked into a shadowed doorway to watch him enter. Inside, the space was elegant and almost sterile in its perfection. Black-suited men moved confidently through the crowd, and women and men alike had that same sharp, alert presence I'd come to associate with awakened omegas and alphas. My instincts screamed. Every nerve in my body hummed. Alert. I could smell the alphas, their subtle dominance, the faint heat in their pheromones. The omegas, their nervous, excited scent, tinged with longing or fear. And in the center, faint but unmistakable, was E. I moved to get a better view, but then, "Hey you, what's your name?" A voice snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned sharply to see an overly friendly omega, a young woman, smiling brightly, reaching out to grab my arm. "I've seen you around, right?" she said, persistence in her tone. I froze, instinctively stepping back. My name's Julian," I said cautiously, tugging my arm free. "I'm not really." She didn't let go. "Julian, that's right. I knew it." She laughed, and the scent of her excitement mixed dangerously with the pheromones already saturating the room. My stomach lurched, pulse spiking. "Focus, Elliot," I muttered under my breath, trying to shake her off politely. But my attention kept drifting back to him. And then I saw it. Elliot was moving toward the restroom. Simple, innocent action, but my nostrils flared violently, almost of their own accord. My alpha instincts roared awake in response to him. Sharp, undeniable, and overwhelming. God, he's mine. I felt the familiar heat of possessiveness creep into my chest. Every instinct I'd been suppressing since he started manifesting as an omega surged. My hands itched to grab him, to pull him away from this dangerous environment, to protect him, claim him. I shook my head violently. No, control yourself. Not here. Not now. But it was impossible. Even standing at a distance, my senses were flooded. I could smell him, more acutely than ever, every trace of him amplified by the room's mingling pheromones. Cinnamon and sunlight, the faint trace of shared showers, and now something deeper, warmer, richer that made my stomach drop. My eyes darted across the room, scanning for anyone who might get too close to him. Every laugh, every gesture of Elliot's was a sharp twist of pain in my chest. He's so damn beautiful. My Omega, my friend, my everything. Then my senses caught movement at the periphery. Another Omega brushing past me, trying to grab attention again. My jaw clenched, but I ignored her. My focus locked entirely on Elliot. And then, I saw Anthony. Tall, black suit, composed, confident. He slid into the seat across from Elliot, speaking in calm tones. My vision narrowed. Who the hell is he? Why is he here? Who told him to touch my Omega? I felt a surge of fury I could barely control. My alpha instincts wanted to erupt, to shove everyone away from him, to claim Elliot here and now. But I forced myself to breathe. Observation first. Plan second. Elliot, oblivious to my gaze, laughed quietly at something Anthony said. My chest tightened painfully. He's laughing with another alpha, smiling, and I can't just storm in. My hands curled into fists. Every nerve screamed to act, to make him mine, to protect him from this unfamiliar, predatory environment. But I waited, watching, scent and instinct screaming a warning I couldn't ignore. He's mine. No one else. Not Anthony. Not anyone. Only me. I could see Elliot's nervousness. The subtle way he fidgeted under Anthony's calm, teasing attention. It was a small thing, barely noticeable, but my alpha side flared. I wanted to storm in, scoop him up, hold him, tell him that no one, ever, would touch him without my permission. Instead, I stayed in the shadows, my amber eyes locked on him, heart hammering, claws metaphorically digging into the space around me. This was a new kind of pain, watching him smile at another, feeling my instincts awaken fully, knowing I needed to act, but knowing I had to restrain myself until the right moment. The evening stretched forward, each second a balance of patience, jealousy, and desperate desire. And through it all, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Elliot was mine. His scent, his laughter, his every subtle gesture. He was bound to me in a way no one else could ever understand. And I wasn't going to let him forget it. The room was warm, full of the hum of conversation, clinking glasses, and faint perfume lingering in the air. I hated it. Every scent, every subtle shift of pheromones was amplified, and my chest tightened with a possessive, raw heat I couldn't ignore. This wasn't just a social gathering. It was a hunting ground for alphas, a maze of awakened instincts, and Elliot was right in the middle. I moved carefully, staying in the shadows, scanning the crowd. Cinnamon, sunshine, the faint trace of our shared shower gel. There, my Omega. Elliot, looking nervous, fidgeting slightly at the edge of the room. My pulse hammered. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to storm in, claim him, protect him from this crowd. But I knew I couldn't just rush. Then a hand grabbed my arm. Hey, wait, what's your name? The Omega girl's voice was bright, almost cheerful, but her grip was irritatingly firm. I stepped back, trying to pull free. Julian, I said, voice clipped, teeth grit against the annoyance flaring through me. She didn't release me. Julian, that's right. I've seen you before. You're. I shook her off. Yes, that's me. Now, thank you. But I'm. Her grin faded slightly as she realized I wasn't a friendly socialite. My amber eyes locked on her, warning sharp, subtle alpha signals that sent her stepping back. Good. One problem out of the way. I exhaled, focusing entirely on Elliot again. He was moving, heading toward the restroom. My nostrils flared, instinct overpowering my thoughts. Cinnamon, sunlight, sweat, fear, and curiosity, all blended together. My alpha awoke fully, responding to his Omega. Mine. The word screamed inside me, Every instinct I'd held back since his awakening surged. Protective, possessive, almost unbearable. I moved faster, silent, keeping just enough shadow between us to watch. Elliot's heartbeat was rapid, almost like he knew I was here, though he didn't yet see me. My body reacted before my mind could think. My muscles tensed. Every ounce of my alpha wanted to pull him into my arms, warn him off everyone, keep him safe. But then he noticed me. His eyes widened, nose flared slightly, pupils dilated. My heart hammered at the small, subtle signs. His Omega instincts reacting to me as strongly as mine reacted to him. Julian. His voice was low, uncertain. There was a quiver I hadn't heard before. I froze, barely daring to move. Elliot, I whispered, trying to keep my tone neutral. Neutral. But he misread my presence. He stiffened, taking a half step back. I wasn't expecting. Of course he wasn't. His Omega senses didn't recognize my alpha fully yet. They were still adjusting. And now I was standing here dominant, overwhelming, and he thought, what? That I'd come to claim him? That I'd confront him? Elliot faltered. His ears flushed pink, visible even through his messy hair. I took a step closer, controlled, careful. My amber eyes softened slightly, trying to calm the surge inside me. But my body betrayed my words. Every muscle, every nerve demanded proximity, demanded closeness. My scent, alpha, amber, possessive, wafted toward him. Elliot's breath hitched. Nose flared again. Eyes darted around the room. Julian. What are you doing here? Watching you, I said low, trying to inject casualness I didn't feel. Making sure you're okay. He blinked. Panic, confusion, and embarrassment flared on his face. He took another half step back. I'm fine. Really? I could see his Omega instincts trembling under the surface, his body responding to me before his mind fully processed it. My alpha roared internally, and I bit my tongue, forcing control. Not here. Not yet. Control. The room seemed to shrink around us, every scent amplified. Alphas, Omegas, humans unaware. The chaos of pheromones made my head spin, but Elliot was the center, the axis of all that mattered. And I couldn't let anyone touch him. He shifted, almost instinctively turning slightly, pulling away, but it wasn't enough. I moved with him, careful, silent, keeping pace without crowding. My senses screamed at me. His fear and confusion only strengthened my need to protect. Elliot, I said softly, a thread of warning in my voice. Don't go too far. Stay close. Stay safe. He froze, eyes wide. Julian. His voice cracked, panic overtaking him. I'm not. I could see him trembling, and my own body surged in response, alpha instincts firing hard. I wanted to pull him close, reassure him, claim him properly, but I had to wait, had to plan. Not here. Not in the crowd. His gaze darted toward another table, a faint shimmer of recognition as he caught sight of Anthony. My blood boiled. Another alpha in proximity, polite, calm, confident, and dangerously close to my Omega. I wanted to roar, to rip him away from that table, from that moment. But I held myself back. A single step, a controlled flare of scent to remind him I was here. My amber eyes flared just enough, nostrils flaring, trying to anchor him, claim him subtly without revealing the full intensity of my presence. Elliot flinched slightly, confusion mixed with relief in his expression. My heart hammered. He didn't know what to make of it, didn't realize I was already aware, already alpha, already fully aware of his scent, his body, his instincts. He's mine, no one else. Not Anthony, not anyone, only me. I exhaled slowly, keeping my body calm, waiting for the moment I could guide him away safely. My control was stretched thin. My alpha instincts screamed for action. And then Elliot's gaze flicked up at me again. I could see the storm of emotions in his eyes. Fear, panic, longing, confusion. The line between misunderstanding and recognition was razor thin. clenched my jaw. Soon he'll understand. Soon I'll claim him properly. For now I followed. Shadows trailing shadows. My Omega. Mine. The hotel room was quiet. The soft hum of the air conditioner the only sound beside the occasional creak of the building settling. I could feel Julian's presence before I even opened my eyes. He was there, just a few feet away, leaning against the wall, arms crossed, amber eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. My stomach twisted at the sight of him, part panic, part longing, and I knew I couldn't avoid the truth any longer. "Julian," I croaked, voice barely above a whisper. My hands twisted in my lap, fingers tangling in the hem of my shirt. He didn't move, didn't say anything, just watched me. Every instinct screamed at me that he already knew how my scent had betrayed me, how my Omega side was flaring in ways I could barely control. I swallowed hard. I need to tell you something, and you have to promise you won't. My voice broke. "You won't hate me?" His expression softened, just a fraction. "Elliot, I'm not going to hate you, but you better start talking before I lose my patience." His voice was low, steady, but there was a tremor in it that made my chest tighten. I exhaled shakily, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I'm an Omega. I didn't know it at first, but it's real. And all this time when I was trying to handle it, I thought maybe I could meet another Alpha just temporarily so you wouldn't have to deal with me like this. I thought if I got bonded or claimed by someone else, maybe it would keep you safe. Keep our friendship intact. Julian's jaw tightened. He stepped closer, amber eyes burning into mine, nostrils flaring faintly with a warning scent I could feel even from here. "Another Alpha?" he said low, voice rough. "Do you even realize what that makes you sound like?" I shook my head frantically, tears pricking my eyes. "No, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't, Julian, please. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you. Not like this. Not ever. And I didn't want to ruin whatever we had. Whatever we've always had." He inhaled sharply, his alpha aura pulsing. My senses went haywire, the heat of him pressing against me even though he was still a step away. I could smell the frustration, the possessiveness, the intensity that was entirely Julian. My Omega instincts twitched, and my pulse raced, but I forced myself to stay seated, to hold my words together. I didn't want anyone else, Julian. I thought I could protect us by keeping it separate, by not telling you. But now it's out, and I'm terrified that I've ruined everything. I admitted, voice cracking, tears spilling freely. He stepped closer, his height looming over me, presence suffocating yet comforting. I could feel his alpha aura brushing against my skin, making my pulse spike. "Elliot," he said, voice low and rough, almost a growl. "You think for 1 second I would let anyone else touch you? Anyone claim you? Do you even know what it feels like to watch you like this? Scared, confused, almost giving yourself to someone else without me even knowing." My stomach lurched. "Julian," I whispered, panic and longing mixing together, making me tremble. He crouched slightly, bringing himself closer to my level, eyes never leaving mine. "Elliot, listen to me. You're mine. You've always been mine. From the first day you laughed too loud and made me feel like silence wasn't empty. You were mine. No one else will ever take that away. Do you understand?" I nodded, sobbing quietly now, shaking with the release of fear I'd held for weeks. I understand," I whispered. "But what if I go into heat? What if I—" He cut me off gently, cupping my face with warm hands, thumbs brushing the tears from my cheeks. "Then I'll take care of you. I'll handle it. No one else. You don't have to hide anything from me ever again. Elliot. Not your scent, not your heat, not your anything." I shivered at the intensity of his words, the possessive pride in his tone, and felt myself leaning instinctively into his touch. "Julian." He lowered himself further, pressing his forehead to mine, amber eyes softening but still glowing with that primal alpha need. "Shoo, I'm not going anywhere. You're mine, forever." And you'll never have to doubt that again. I felt my knees weaken. Forever? I whispered. Hope and fear tangled in my voice. Yes, he said firmly, lips brushing my temple. Forever. Yumi, this, whatever it takes. I let myself collapse against him, hands tangling in his hair as he held me close. My tears soaked into his shirt, but he didn't flinch, didn't move. He was steady, solid, immovable in the way only Julian could be. I'm sorry, I murmured against his chest, voice muffled. I was scared. I didn't want to ruin us. You didn't ruin anything, he said, soft yet firm. If anything, you just reminded me why I'll never let anyone else have you. Not ever. You're mine, Elliot. Mine. I clung to him, letting the warmth of his body chase away the lingering fear. Every touch, every brush of his hands against mine, every heartbeat pressed into mine, was a promise. My Omega instincts calmed in his presence, the overwhelming panic and confusion finally settling into something safe, something mine. He pulled back slightly, still holding me by the shoulders, and looked down at me, amber eyes soft but piercing. Do you trust me? Yes, I whispered, voice trembling. Completely. Julian's lips curved into a rare, soft smile, and he leaned down to press a gentle kiss to my forehead. Good, because from now on, I'll be the one to take care of you. No more hiding, no more running, no one else. I nodded, letting the weight of his words sink in, feeling an unfamiliar but welcome peace spread through me. My hands found his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat beneath my fingers. Julian, can we just stay like this for a while? I whispered. He chuckled softly, brushing his lips against the top of my head. All night if you want, and every night after that. You're mine, Elliot. Always have been, always will be. I closed my eyes, letting myself finally relax into him. The tension, the fear, the panic, all of it melted away. Julian was here, my protector, my alpha, my childhood friend, and something far more. And for the first time in weeks, I felt safe, desired, and unashamed of who I was. The world outside could wait. Right now, in this hotel room with Julia.